Hey guys, I'm Cindy, and there's something I need to share that's been hurting me for a long time. It's about my mom. You see, she has anger issues, and it's out of control. Her way of raising me has gotten so bad, and I don't know what to do. You're probably wondering, where is my dad in all of this? Well, my dad is actually on the other side of the world because he's a soldier, and I rarely get to see him. I wish he was around though, because things are seriously getting out of control. You see, my mom had a routine she used to follow every day in order to check how my grades were at school. Every afternoon, she would prepare a quiz and ask me questions that I was supposed to know the answer for about the subjects I had in school. And if I didn't know the answers, then my mom would get furious. I wouldn't dare not know the answers. I was scared, guys. But apparently, I wasn't scared enough because one time I skipped studying since she forgot to ask me. And, oh well, more free time for me. So I enjoyed myself all that afternoon, doing what I really love, talking to friends and socializing, watching videos and other fun stuff. But here is what really happened next. It turns out my mom hadn't forgotten. She was testing me, and I was too stupid to realize it. I only got it when she suddenly woke me up the next morning, holding 2 sheets of paper in her hand. She was ready for the quiz, but I wasn't. So when she started asking me questions, I could not answer. She asked me the first question, and I said, I don't know. The point is, I had just opened my eyes. So even if I had studied something, I was in no condition to answer because I honestly didn't anticipate this when I decided to have fun last night. At that moment, I was so scared, I was nearly shivering. She started getting mad, so she got up and hit the table with both hands, yelling, "Answer me!" But I couldn't utter a word. I was frozen. Frozen, I tell you. My brain still couldn't process how all of this happened. She wasn't supposed to remember the very next morning. Well, she never actually forgot. Anyway, there I was, like an unprotected puppy that's thrown in the streets and doesn't know what to do. I had failed to answer the first question, so she proceeded to the second one. "Rephrase Newton's first law," she said to me. The only thing I could remember at that moment was our old neighbor who got arrested for breaking the law, and his name was Newton. But that has nothing to do with science. "Quit thinking and answer me!" My mom screamed with a voice I thought was about to shatter the windows. She started giving me lectures about how I should study in order to be a straight-A student, and that is the only way to succeed in life, yada yada yada. And the more she yelled, the darker her eyes grew. But then she noticed that me and my brother were late for school, and that's when she became really, and I mean really angry. She started screaming at the top of her lungs, and her only target was, you got it, me. She was all over my face, eyes, and ears, yelling like an insane beast who hasn't had food in years and is foaming at the mouth. And she blamed me for everything. She blamed me for my brother also not studying. She blamed me for being late at school, and she even blamed me for her being angry. "It's your fault that I am screaming right now," she yelled. "No, that's on you," I said calmly. What followed next left me in shock. Out of nowhere, I see my mom grab my chair and swing it everywhere in my room. She lifted it up and hit the light bulb, breaking it. Then, after she realized what a stupid incident she had caused, she got even angrier, and her face was red this time. And then she slammed the chair on the furniture where I used to keep all my teddy bears and dolls. She was completely out of control. I had never seen my mom like that before in my life. It was like a monster had overtaken her and her only mission was destruction. She looked at me with burning eyes and she started approaching me with the chair still in her hands. I immediately hid in my closet right before my mom took the last swing that was meant for me, but it hit the ground and the chair broke apart. I've seen my mom angry before, but never like this. I thought this was like a one-time happening that I got to witness, and then things would go back to normal. I had no idea what the future had in store for me. To my astonishment, these anger issues started growing larger and larger. She started to become physical more often, this time with both of us, and it didn't even stop when my dad came home for good. Well, she fought with us as much as she could when he was in the house, but the second he would go out, she would start to really terrify us. It was obvious that she had anger management issues, and we couldn't take it anymore. But we couldn't say anything to my dad. She would manipulate him and make him think that we were making stories up. So whenever my brother or I would try to talk to him about these fights, he would just ignore us and say something such as, "You kids have a very wild imagination." He didn't know we were saying the truth. He even blamed us for the broken light bulb after my mom told him that we broke it while playing ball inside the house. Ugh, that was so annoying. We had to be responsible for everything she would break during her anger explosion. All in all, it was the same fight repeating itself over and over. I thought I was stuck in a loophole until I turned 14, and the way my mom would behave started to change. One day, she suddenly started acting happy for no reason. She was smiling more and going out a lot. She was barely around the house anymore, so we wouldn't fight as much, and for a period of time, we hadn't had a fight in 2 months. I mentioned my mom going out a lot, which she didn't do in the past. Well, she had a reason now. You won't believe it, and neither did I when I started to notice the first hints. I remember walking into her talking to someone on the phone in a very flirtatious way, and there was this one time that I walked into her bedroom to get my hairbrush, and she was taking hot selfies. I didn't want to believe it, but I really started suspecting that she was cheating on my dad. I even saw her get into a car with another man one time. I never talked to anyone about it because I thought it would be for the best. I know that you're thinking that I shouldn't do that to my dad, but hey, at least we weren't fighting like crazy anymore, and that was a good enough reason for me to keep what I had seen to myself. I know. What she was doing to my dad was terrible, and if I didn't say a thing to him, I would be a terrible person too. But as long as I could keep her crazy, angry side away from me, I made a vow to not say anything. That side of her would scare me enough to keep a secret. Besides, what if my father wouldn't believe me? Can you picture his reaction if I told him that my mom is cheating? I mean, he blamed us for the light bulb, for the broken chair, and for my doll's shelf. No, I'd rather not risk it. I am keeping this to myself. So for a couple of years, I kept my mouth shut and just lived my life. I noticed that my mom was talking to other people a lot more than before. That's when I really started to think that she seriously wasn't a good person. I mean, why would she hurt her family like that? I didn't want to be the same as her. I wanted to say something to my dad. I wanted to be fair with him and just let him know about the whole situation. But something inside me kept me silent. And the more time passed, the more horrible of a person I felt inside. Until one day we had a big family fight, and all because of my mom and her anger management issues. The fight began because of a couple of dishes that I hadn't washed. Can you believe this? She would cause an enormous fight just for a couple of dirty dishes. I was so sick of it. So as soon as I saw the fight coming, I made a life-changing decision. I was going to confess to my father about my cheating mom. My mom started yelling at me as loud as she could about the dishes. I remained calm and thought of giving her one chance to calm down, but she wouldn't. She called me names and, yeah, I exploded. I started screaming back at her, saying how sick I was of her anger issues and how she was a terrible mother and how she didn't deserve my father because she was cheating on him. Everything stopped. I could not believe what I just said. It was all 4 of us at the table. My dad and my brother were shocked. My brother just got up, took his plate with him, and went to the other room. My mom started acting dumb, like she didn't know what I was talking about. However, my dad's reaction was the one that surprised me to the extreme. He seemed so stiff, like nothing had happened. I think that deep down he had found out the bitter truth long ago, but had kept it to himself, the same as I did. Like most affair dramas, you would expect us to get into a gigantic fight. Surprisingly, it went far different from what I thought. After I said, "Dad, she is cheating on you," he took a long pause and then said, "I know." My mom continued to act clueless, but we weren't buying it. I just went into my room, and so did my dad. My mom was all alone in the living room. Lying in my bed, I started realizing for the first time in my life, my family was about to break into pieces. After it was all over, my mom and my dad broke up. They started to live in separate houses, and I would go from one place to another. It was a really sad period, especially when I would stay alone with my mother. When she would be out, everything would be fine. But as soon as she would come back, we would fight like crazy. And it was all her fault. She would completely ignore me because she was too busy talking to her boyfriends. And whenever I would ask for something, she would put her phone down and get angrier than a beast. I prayed to my dad to live with him for good, but he said he couldn't do that, so I had to go back and forth. Whenever I would be at my dad's house, things would be calm. We would have so much fun. He would take me and my brother out for a dinner at a restaurant, and everything would be peaceful. I never understood why my mom couldn't just enjoy a happy moment like that. Why would she always get mad over petty reasons and ruin the moment? I mean, the three of us were so happy. But then I would move in with my mother and I would do my best to avoid getting into a fight with her, but it was kind of impossible. Now, I don't want to bore you and say we would only fight and that was it until eternity. Obviously, we had our calm moments, like every person. It was during one of these calm moments that I found out another side of my mom. It was one of the first times that my mom and I would have a calm conversation. We were sitting in the living room watching TV. She got a text message from someone. Usually, whenever one of us would get a text, a conversation would spark up. I had been carrying some questions on my chest that I wanted to ask her, so I thought here was my chance. And out of nowhere I asked, "Why aren't you like the other mothers? Why didn't you stay faithful to Dad? Why are you so angry all the time?" I thought this would be the beginning of another enormous fight, but quite the opposite happened. She put her phone down, took a deep breath, and at that moment I thought she was about to explode in my face again, like many times before. But she started to speak calmly. I could hear the seriousness in her voice. She really wanted me to listen this time, and I was all ears as she was about to explain the source of every fight and every struggle that we had ever had. She started explaining that she wasn't always like this. She wasn't always angry in the past. In fact, she was smiley and happy when she was my age. I couldn't believe that. My mom, smiley and happy? How could it be? I thought she had always been like this. She continued explaining how it all started when she was still in high school. One day after she came home from school, her parents told her that they had found a great guy for her, and she was about to get married to him through an arrangement. She was shocked. She told them that she already had a boyfriend, and she had school, but nobody would listen to her. She was then forced to leave school and get settled through an arranged marriage with a guy 11 years older than her. She told me that she made all these sacrifices for the sake of her parents. She moved in with my dad, and they started having a life together. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, and from what she told me, I saw another side of my dad that I had never imagined before in my life. My mom told me that he would force her to stay inside the house for most of the years that they lived together with no children. She wouldn't have any friends because he wouldn't allow her, and whenever she would try to go out for a walk, he would either follow her or they would end up in a fight inside the house, and he would hit her. I could not believe my ears. My dad hitting my mom? That's impossible. In my eyes, my dad was this soft, caring guy that would take us out to dinners. How could he have done something like that? As my mom explained, I started to tear up a little bit. She said to me that all those years of oppression, forced to stay inside the house with no human interaction, got the best of her. And now that she had 2 children, she felt like the most beautiful years of her life were wasted. So now she just made the decision to go out and enjoy that same period that she missed when she was younger. And that explains why she was cheating on my dad, and why she was angry all the time. She would see us as the obstacles that prevented her from having the fun she needed to have in her youth. After that conversation, we had some peaceful time with each other. We wouldn't fight as much, until one last time that was the biggest fight of all. It started out like 90% of the regular fights that we would have. I was just chilling in the living room, while my brother was in his room. My mom came out of nowhere, and she threw a cleaning cloth in my face. I was so confused for a moment. It didn't hurt, but I could tell she did it on purpose, like saying that I had done something wrong. She started yelling at me about not doing the chores right. I told her to relax, and that was a mistake. It only made her angrier. She grabbed the cleaning cloth and threw it again in my face. My vision got black from the anger. My body size is bigger than my mom's, so I got up and grabbed her hair, dragging her on the floor. We were fighting like wildcats until my brother came out of his room, trying to break us apart. After he succeeded in breaking up the fight, he started blaming me for it. That's when I totally snapped. I started fighting with my brother too. I grabbed a pair of socks from the couch and threw them in his face. Without leaving him any time to think, I grabbed another pair of them and threw them in his face again. He got angry at me and we started fighting with dirty socks. My mom just ran to the bedroom and left us fighting. That's when I realized that I wasn't mad at my brother, but at my mom, so I followed her. We started going at each other again, but this time she managed to make me fall on the ground. I was screaming like crazy. I am pretty sure that the whole neighborhood could hear me. It was that loud. Then she sat on top of me and shoved a sock in my mouth. It was absolutely disgusting. I couldn't believe everything that was happening. I got up and took the sock out of my mouth, but the fact that even happened made me furious. I wanted to jump on my mom and, fight like a cat, but my brother came into the room trying to break us apart again, and again he succeeded. Then my mom started cursing at both of us this time, and that got my brother angry too. Now we were 2 against 1. My brother started screaming at my mother, and that continued for a few minutes. She got tired of it all and started yelling at us to leave the room, but we wouldn't. After she tried to push us, we were at the doorway, still cursing at her. She tried to push the door so she could be alone, but my brother kept pushing it open. So my mom thought of the only way to keep us out: undressing. Because who walks in a room where their mother is undressing? That's right, no one. No one wants to see that view. That's why we keep away from the room when she gets out of the shower. So she finally managed to get us out of the room by getting ready to get into the shower. We were angry, but laughing at the same time. You probably think that I am crazy right now, but this was the environment that I was raised in. After all of the fights, and especially this last one, I just had to move out at some point. I just packed my stuff one night, and I was out of my mom's house for real. My brother started living with my dad for good, and as far as my mom, she just went to France with one of her boyfriends. We would talk on the phone from time to time until I couldn't reach her anymore. Later, I learned that she ended up in jail for messing with the wrong people. Apparently, her boyfriend was a drug dealer, and they were caught at the airport with a bag full of cash, and no explanation for where the cash came from. Now I talk with her maybe once a month, and it has been 2 years that she's been locked up. I somehow feel sorry for her, but at the same time, I remember that my family tore apart, and all because of my mom and her anger management issues. I don't know if I will be able to forgive her in the future. Now I am living day by day, enjoying the peaceful times, trying to get my mind off the past.